folks, welcome to another episode of This Week in Hockey East. Along with Bridgette Proulx, I'm Eric Gallanty. Final week of the women's first half before they go on the holiday break, and we're going to start there with a really crucial matchup between the top two teams in Hockey East going into this final weekend. Northeastern, which has been on a roll, against Boston College. Friday, Saturday series. We'll have the Saturday game for you, 1:30 start on Nesson. But the bigger deal, Bridgette, and we're going to talk about this a lot over the next couple of weeks, this is Saturday's game is the final women's home game at Matthews Arena. So let's just start there, right, with the magnitude of that before we even get to the game.
Yeah, I mean, it's a time for reflection on all of the great things that have happened for the women's program in that building. And when you look back at all they have accomplished, they've won a lot of different titles, 8 Beanpot titles, 3 ECAC titles before they switched over to Hockey East. And they won 4 Hockey East titles there at Matthews Arena. And some of the best players in women's hockey have come through. I think of Kendall Coyne Schofield, who's a professional and played in the Olympics, Erin Frankel, Alina Mueller. They've all had pro careers and many other players that have played at Northeastern that have gone on to be predominant players in the women's side of hockey. So there's been a lot of big names, a lot of big games played at Matthews Arena. And that's one of the reasons why it's going to be sad for them to see it go, not just the fact that it's a historic building and it was the first home of the Boston Bruins. Now, this season, it's been special for them too, because Northeastern still doesn't have a regulation loss at Matthews Arena. They are 9 wins and an overtime loss against UNH at Matthews this year. So another reason why they're going to not like to see it go is just they've had so much success there.
Yeah, and it does make the stakes of this game a little more interesting, right? Because Northeastern does drop that game in overtime to New Hampshire on Tuesday. I think the thing that was a little surprising was Northeastern's special teams have been so good all year long, and they allowed a shorthanded goal and 2 power play goals to New Hampshire in the 4-3 victory. But still, overall, 9-1 to start Hockey East. Bridgette, you saw Northeastern last week when they played that really important Penn State series that we talked a lot about. They end up splitting that weekend. What was the thing that stood out to you about the Northeastern team that we've seen this year?
I think one thing is that they're putting up great offensive numbers, not just the normal defensive numbers that we know Dave Flint coach teams are very good defensively on the penalty kill, good goaltending, but the offensive numbers have been impressive. And Lily Shannon continues to be on a roll. She's had at least 1 goal in each of the last 6 games, 14 points in the last 8 games for her. And that includes scoring in both of those games against number 4 Penn State last weekend, which is not an easy team to score against. So she leads Hockey East with 13 goals. But it's not just her that's doing the scoring, right? Northeastern has 17 different goal scorers this season, so they're getting it throughout the lineup. And Alessia Beckler, the freshman defenseman, got her first collegiate goal this weekend. And you look at Striker Zablocki, already has 7 goals as a freshman. But similarly, BC has some freshmen lighting it up too, Eric.
Yeah, they certainly do. And some of these names are going to come up when we go later in the show. We're going to talk about some of the best players that we've seen in the conference so far this year, kind of a natural halfway point here, going into Christmas break. Yeah, big weekend for Boston College, right? They were 4-6-1. They lost to UConn early in November, but all of a sudden now Boston College is 5-1 in their last 6 games since that UConn loss. They beat UConn in that second game, and they've kind of gone on a roll since then. They end up splitting with St. Lawrence out of the ECAC last weekend, and once again, Ava Thomas, who we've talked so much about. She's our Jersey Mike's a sub above player of the week once again. Scored the overtime winner in the game on Friday to end up beating the Saints. That was a game that Boston College was up 2-0. They give up the lead, but then they win the game in overtime. And look how early into the overtime period it is that Thomas goes in on a breakaway and scores what was just a massive winner for BC. So she's been amazing. You know, the other one that really stands out to me is Maxime Tremblay has been especially good for BC, someone that maybe we haven't talked quite as much about this year. She's on a 7-game point streak. She has 4 goals in that little stretch, season high 6 shots on Friday. Katie Crawley was telling us earlier today how impressed she's been at the fact she's doing it at center, which is not necessarily a spot she has a ton of experience, but she's really helped that line play well. So that's a crucial series, Bridgette. The other crucial series, UConn and BU, certainly stands out. UConn coming off that victory in the Nutmeg Classic with a win over Quinnipiac and Yale.
Yeah, UConn coming in as the number 7 team in the country now, and we talked about how important that would be. It was their first win in the Nutmeg since 2009, and those wins help go towards UConn's NPI that could help them make the
Mhm.
tournament at the end of the season. So that was good for them, and their special teams have been a strength this season. They have a good power play, they have a good penalty kill. They also are the most disciplined team in Hockey East. They haven't taken a lot of penalties this season. So their power play up over 20%, penalty kill 87%, still pretty good. And Tia Chan has been a presence in net this season. Once again, she has the most wins among Hockey East goalies. She's won 11 of her 15 games. And the Huskies are coming into this BU series on a 4-game win streak, partially due to the great play of Tia Chan.
Yeah, she's been great. We'll talk more about her a little bit later. BU is coming off a big win against Holy Cross on Tuesday, 3-0 shutout win. Mari Peterson, 19 save shutout. She's played 3 straight games now, so that's an interesting conversation, unbeaten in her last 3. So BU playing well behind Peterson against UConn. That's a pretty big matchup this weekend. When we come back, we'll look over at the men's side, big one in the border battle with Maine and UNH. That kicks off our coverage when we come back. Welcome back to This Week in Hockey East. Another big game, another rivalry game coming up on Friday. UNH going up to Maine for 2 games. We'll have the Friday night game for you at 7 o'clock right here on Nesson. This is kind of a sneaky, crucial weekend for a bunch of different reasons. UNH has a little bit of momentum coming in. Maine trying to take care of their home games. Let's start with the Maine side of things. They haven't played in a little while since that BC weekend a couple of weekends ago. And it was funny talking to Ben Barr this week, Bridgette, because for the second weekend in a row, he said, we might have played better in the game that we lost than in the game that we won, but that's just the way it's been going so far. They're trying to find that consistency. They've definitely been a little bit inconsistent. That's the word that Ben Barr has thrown out a lot over the course of this season. So that's really what they're trying to do right now, right? It's trying to find that consistency with their group.
Yeah, and some players that have been consistent throughout the season have actually been their younger players, their freshmen. Maine's freshmen continue to be impactful. We talked about Justin Poirier. He stood out again against Boston College. 2 points Friday, including a beautiful power play goal. He leads Hockey East in goals with 11, and he's also 4th in shots. So he definitely makes sure to get his chances. And another freshman, Miguel Marcus, had 2 goals Saturday, a 3-point weekend, 7 points in his last 4 games. And those 2 freshmen lead Maine in they're both top 2 on Maine in terms of points scored. So a big weekend, Eric. But the question is, where's the goaltending at, right? Albin Boya has not quite lived up to the numbers he had last season.
Yeah, he struggled a little bit in the game on Friday, but it was more because Mattis Russo played so well on Saturday, shutting out Boston College. So Ben Barr said he hopes that Russo playing well might actually push Boya a little bit. I don't think we're talking about crazy concern right now. We know how good Albin Boya's been, but it's definitely something that we're monitoring and they are monitoring going into this weekend against a UNH team that's playing well, Bridgette. That is not going to be an easy challenge.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of a sneaky run that they've been on recently. And it's just a week and a half ago, they sat with a 5-7 record, down 3-1 against UConn late in the second period. Then all of a sudden, Jacob Newcomb scores a power play goal. We're going to talk more about him in a second. And now, in their last 85 minutes of game action, they've outscored opponents 6-0. So there's been a turnaround there. And they're coming back to 500 on the season. They enter this rivalry series with some momentum because of that.
Yeah, here's the thing about UNH, right? And I feel like we're talking about college basketball here when I say this, but if they can get on a run, right? If they can get on a run, UNH has the best resume win of any team in Hockey East, right? Remember, way back opening night, they went out to Michigan State and beat Michigan State at Munn. No one does that. No one's done that. No one has that big a win. So if they can find a way to get on a little bit of a run, that win is going to give them a quality win bonus that will push them into the conversation. But they have to get on a run. The other thing that's benefiting them is that they have these 2 games at Maine, and then next week, and we'll talk about this next week, they play the number 1 team in the NPI in Dartmouth, which obviously has a chance to push them if they could find a way to get those wins. Now, you have to actually win these games, so it's easier said than done, but there is like a kind of recipe there, right? If they can sort of get going here. You mentioned Jacob Newcomb. What a great stretch it's been for him. 3 goals on this 2-game win streak. He has 4 points, couple of power play goals, comes out of the Quebec League. And that is something worth talking about that's going to be interesting about this matchup. I think it's something that Jimmy and I are going to talk about a lot on Friday. This is the most heavy CHL influence of any two Hockey East teams you could put together, right? There's 15 guys from major juniors on these two rosters. Poirier, you mentioned, Newcomb, you mentioned, Felix Gagnon, you mentioned. Like, there's a lot of really important players. And it makes sense because if you take a map and you look at like where the teams are in, the OHL a little bit, but really more so the Q, they are surrounding Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont, right? So these are the teams that you think are going to really benefit from this. And we're seeing it with the teams on the ice with these Maine and New Hampshire this year. So that should be a really interesting matchup. But it's a full weekend of NESN games because on Sunday we have more for you. We have UMass going to Northeastern, 2-game weekend, Saturday a conference game, Sunday an out-of-conference game. UMass dropped a tough one last week to Army West Point, Bridgette.
Yeah, and for UMass, there's still a question in net, right? Michael Robel is healthy again. Got back in net, got back in the lineup this past week against Army after missing about a month of games due to injury, but he got pulled after giving up 5 goals in 2 periods in that game. And his head coach, Greg Carvel, said he didn't seem fully game ready. So Carvel said that practice this week was going to determine if he earns the net against Northeastern or if they go back to Jackson Irving, who had been taking over the net with Robel out. And one injury update for them as well, Justin Kerr, center, will be out this weekend. He's a good face-off guy for them. He's been key, and he's a guy that UMass likes for both his size and speed, but they'll be without him. And UMass has some key defensemen to keep an eye on, I think, in this series. That includes one of the better offensive defensemen in the league, Francesco Del Alce. He has the 3rd most points among any Hockey East defenseman. And Larry Keenan, who's an important all-around defenseman. He gets a lot of top matchups.
Yeah, and they need those guys because they need to score. Sneaky here, UMass is down about like a goal and a half per game in the month of November from what they were in October. So if they can get their offense going again, they should be okay. It's interesting that we see this matchup because Northeastern, this was such an important game for them when they beat UMass in October out in Amherst because it was right on the heels of, ironically enough, a loss to Army. And they really, kind of faced adversity from the first time, but they bounced back. They beat UMass in a pretty significant way. So that was important for them going on a run. We're going to talk about Northeastern coming up here in a little bit, but there was also a fairly notable performance last week, Bridgette, that we want to take a look at.
Yeah, it was a big weekend for Bruins draft pick James Hagens earlier this week. He was named to the U.S. World Juniors team preliminary roster, one of 5 current Hockey East players named to that team. And Hagens is coming off his best weekend of the season, his best game of the season against Notre Dame last Friday, his first career hat trick.
And because of it, he's our Service Credit Union scoring leader for the week. 3 goals. He's up to 9 for the year, 20 for his career. And BC really needed him because they were down in that game. So Hagens and Dean Letourneau combined for 4 goals in the victory. Boston College, continues to play well here in the month of November. Hagens, a huge reason why. Nice little shot there to beat Nicholas Kempf, who might be a teammate of his on that preliminary roster for the World Junior team. So that should be an interesting thing. BC's playing Lowell this week. We're going to carry on. Hopefully a special guest coming in when we come back. You're watching This Week in Hockey East.
Welcome back to This Week in Hockey East. It's time for our interview with Northeastern defenseman Vinny Borgesi, brought to you by Boston Harbor Hotel. Plan your getaway today at bostonharborhotel.com and experience Boston's best waterfront views. Vinny, welcome into the show. Thank you for joining us. I want to start off with something really simple. You guys have had a great start to this season. What has been one thing or a few things that have allowed you to have success so early this year?
The biggest thing for us, coming into training camp at the beginning of the year was just kind of just gelling together as soon as possible. Doing things off the ice a little bit, but then coming in and really focusing on what coach has to say and our systems, obviously. But, for us, it's more of a team first game, really focusing on the details each and every day and just growing, honestly. After the first couple of weekends, we knew what we had in that locker room, and each and every day we step on that ice and we're finding ways to get better. So, and you can really tell each weekend we keep growing as a group. So it's really fun to be a part of.
Vinny, that game against UMass that you guys played, and it's fitting that you're playing them again this weekend. Sometimes it's easy for us on the outside to like look at something and think maybe it's a bigger deal than it was. But how important was going out, getting that UMass win, coming off the Army game, and allowing yourselves to build some confidence? And then obviously you went on that stretch of, Denver and Boston College after that. But how crucial a game was that early in the season?
Yeah, I think for us, obviously coming off a loss the weekend before, we knew we kind of had to go out there and take care of business. I think it was really important for us to play honest in all three zones. We know that they're a really good team. They got a lot of weapons, so for us to obviously shut down their best players and play the game the right way and play it for 60 full minutes, I think we did a really good job. Really good job of protecting our net, and then when we had chances, we capitalized. So, I still think to this day that that was probably our best game this year. Again, and we just build it off of that. Again, like I said,
Mhm.
we kept growing every day. And after that game, we kind of looked at each other and said, we have something special in here, and we just got to keep and build off that game there. So that game was exciting, and it gave us a little bit of a jump start to, go on that little hot stretch there.
Vinny, you last year you led the country in time on ice. You're once again leading the country in time on ice this year. How much is that a role that you embrace and are looking for? Being on the ice as much as you are.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't really look for it. For me, it's a team first kind of thing for us this year. And again, like whatever this team needs, I'm going to do. So, it's my job to take care of my body and feel great every day, stepping on that ice, working on things that I need to work on, but also managing my body each and every day. But again, like it just comes down to whatever the staff needs, whatever this team needs, I'm going to do. So.
And I wanted to ask you a question about your goaltender this season. He's missed a few games here, but Lawton Zacher got off to a really good start, and that was part of the reason the team's had such success so far. Can you just talk about the kind of person he is and what he's done for your team so far this year?
Yeah, I mean, LZ's great. The guys love him. He's just an unbelievable guy. Just a guy you want to be around every day. Nothing but great things to say about him. He's an ultra competitor, and that's what we love here at Northeastern. And when he steps onto that ice, into that crease every game, we have full confidence in him back there. And it's pretty easy for us D men to play our game and to trust him back there. But every day he shows up with a smile on his face, and just love being around him. And he works really really hard. So I'm happy to see him playing really well right now and getting back in the cage this weekend for us. So that'll be good.
Vinny, obviously one of the big storylines this year for you guys is you're in the home stretch now of these final couple of games at Matthews Arena. For you as a player, obviously it being your home and, potentially what it means for the future and the historic nature of the building. I mean, all of it combined, what are the emotions here as you get set for these final couple of games in your home building?
Yeah, I think for us as a group, honestly, we've been I don't want to say beating around the bush, but we haven't really talked about it, to be honest. And now the time is here, so we kind of touched on it yesterday a little bit. And for me, again, 4 years in this building and a lot of history, and just stepping in here every day and being thankful that we have this rink here. I tell the guys all the time, like you really don't realize how much history really is in this building. So, and I kind of touched on it yesterday with the group too. Like we're 15 days out, right? 15 days left in this building. So I told our guys, just show up with a smile on your face, have a blast down at the rink with the guys, and just work hard. Every time you step on the ice, it's a privilege to play here. So again, it's emotional that it's coming down and stuff like that, but we just been kind of in this flow state of playing games, focusing on the weekends, and again, just touching on, just all of a sudden kind of popped up into our hands here. So again, just showing up and appreciating that we have this place for the last couple of weeks. It's going to be awesome in this building.
And we wanted to touch on the Spengler Cup as well, because you were named to the roster of the Spengler Cup. Have you ever played in Europe? Have you ever been to Switzerland? And what are you looking forward to going and playing? And are there any guys you're looking forward to playing with in the Spengler Cup?
Yeah, I mean, I've played in or not Davos, sorry. I've played in Lausanne a while ago in Switzerland with Team USA way back in the day when I was younger. But I'm really excited. Obviously, it's a privilege and it's an honor to be named on that team. But to be honest, right now I'm full hands on deck what to do here and handle what's going on here first, and then obviously super excited to get out there with that group and just put my best foot forward to help that team win in any way possible. So Really looking forward to it. But for us here, these last 3 games, are really important for us and really important for me. So just going to take it, enjoy it. And then when that time comes, I'll be ready to go. So.
All right, thank you so much, Vinny Borgesi, for joining us on This Week in Hockey East. When we come back, we're going to go around some of the women's leaders from Hockey East so far. That's coming up next on Nesson. It's time to look at the women's leaders around Hockey East, presented by Boston Children's Hospital, the official children's hospital of Hockey East. Boston Children's Hospital, where the world comes for answers. Well, we're at the natural halfway point of the season with the women's slate ending this week. We thought it would be fun to take a look at some of the players who are running for those postseason awards, in the front running for that at this point. We've already hit on a couple of the big ones with Lily Shannon and Ava Thomas, but let's talk about some of the other top players in the women's side so far and who might be going for some of those end of season awards.
Yeah, I feel like the all rookie team is where this is going to get interesting. The all freshman team, right? We talked about Ava Thomas a little bit more. How good has Violet Carroll been, though, for Holy Cross, leading Holy Cross with 18 points? I've been impressed with how much offense she's generated. 4 plus shots a bunch of times, 5 plus shots a bunch of times. You see that a lot. Had that notable 2-goal, 3-point game against UConn earlier this month. So she's one that's definitely stood out to me, Bridgette.
Yeah, and Skylar Zablocki, I think, is another person you put in that running for Rookie of the Year. She was the Hockey East Rookie of the Month in November. She's got 7 goals already. That's the second most among Hockey East freshmen, and that's behind Ava Thomas, right? So Ava Thomas, Violet Carroll, Skylar Zablocki, all up with a lot of good offensive numbers so far. And Zablocki was one of the top recruits out of Canada this year for men's or women, so she was very highly regarded, and I feel like she does have another gear that she can hit in the second half.
Yeah, I think so. Nina Rossi's the other one for UNH, especially because she scored a shorty on Tuesday against Northeastern, points in 3 of her last 4, top 10 in points overall in the league. Coming into this year, there was a goalie question, right? Of, Tia Chan did it a little more than half the time. Now can she do it all the time? And Bridgette, the answer has certainly been yes.
Yeah, I think she's probably the front runner for goalie of the year at this point. She leads all eligible Hockey East goalies in wins with 11. Her save percentage is also top of Hockey East with a 949 save percentage. She wears the C, and she's been a big reason why UConn has a 12-3-1 record so far.
Yeah, Abby Horning's been really good as well. 931 save percentage in Hockey East games this year for Holy Cross. Lisa Junssen's been really good as well. So that's going to be an interesting conversation also. We've talked about Lily Shannon. I feel like weirdly the player of the year and the D of the year might actually be the easier ones to figure out versus the freshman of the year. There's a lot of goalies playing well, but the top D is an interesting one, right? Because Jules Constantinople has been so good for Northeastern.
Yeah, and we had her on last week on the show. She was a great interview as well, but she leads all Hockey East defensemen in goals, assists, points per game, and power play goals. So she's just so far ahead of the rest of the defensemen in terms of offensive production. And she also logs a lot of time. She was really impressive in that series with Penn State. I thought she won the battles against some of the top forwards in the country. When she matches up against other teams, she's going against their best players, and a lot of times she's coming out on top. So I really feel like she's in the front of the pack for that, but we'll see what happens in the second half.
Yeah, can't wait. That Northeastern BC series is going to be so much fun. All the games this week are going to be so much fun. Can't wait to watch them. By the way, quick note, men's hockey's championship tickets back at TD Garden on sale right now, March 20th, March 21st, back to a Friday, Saturday. You can go get those right now at Ticketmaster.com. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll have one more episode next week before we hit the holiday break, and we'll talk to you then. Thanks for joining us on This Week in Hockey East.